one day, the two guys got together. One day, the two guys got together, there we go, to have a talk about Facebook. Because when most people think about social, they think Facebook. And when they think Facebook, they think 750 million users. So it's like, this is good. So they decided to have a look at some of the facts. Now, what you notice is that there are a lot of Facebookers in Europe, like millions of them all over the place. In Spain, there's 12.8 Facebookers. It's just a lot of people. In the UK, we're up to 28 million. So it's a very exciting area when you think about it, just because of the volume of people, all in one place. And the other thing that's interesting about Facebook is it just keeps growing and growing and growing. And I remember a couple of years ago when it was 500,000 people, or 500 million people, I think people felt that it just couldn't grow an awful lot more, an awful lot faster. But you know what? It just keeps on growing. It's astonishing. And at 750 million users, it's the largest single walled gardener there ever has been. So it's absolutely immense. And whenever you look at the Facebook stats, they talk about active users, half of them logging on every day. The average user having about 130 friends. So this is like your typical village. And I'm sure if you know about sociology theory or whatever, you know that a village extends to about that. So that's great. We all have our little village. And there's an awful lot of time spent just hanging out. So the other interesting thing about this is the number of community pages people are part of and the volume of content creation that goes on in Facebook. It's immense. It really is. And our friend Afmar just loves this because he's thinking there's an opportunity there. So the other interesting fact that came out fairly recently is that more people spend more time hanging out in Google or on Facebook than they do on Google, which is very interesting. Because then what you're thinking is, this is not looking good for Google, I guess. So, but just to be clear on this, when they talk about this stat, it doesn't mean commercial intent. It just means that you go onto Facebook, see your buddies, see what's going on, hang out for half an hour, make a few updates, and then you're off. But with Google, you're not there to sit around. You're there to go from there to somewhere else. And this is a fundamental difference. So the economy is huge. And Zynga, as you know, are a huge part of that economy. So they, if it was a landmass, they would be the biggest landmass in Facebook land. And they have one of the biggest apps on Facebook at the moment. Some of you probably played Hold'em Poker by Zynga. And it's running at what, 36 million active users. Now this will have gone up by like 500,000 by the time I look at the fresh numbers. I did this about 4 days ago. But it's growing exponentially. It's nuts. And people like it, which is why it's getting that 4.5 out of 5 rating, which is very, very good. So iGaming is huge on Facebook. It's absolutely massive. The volumes of people that play basically casino and poker games are in their millions. So it really is an amazing opportunity for our friend Afmar and also for our friend Otmar. They love it. And so anyway, they all feel good and it's very nice. And look, they then had a look at some of the stats on the Facebook apps. So what have we got? The monthly active users, 36,678. And this is ranked number 7 on the Facebook app board. Now, when I checked it this morning, from memory, it was ranked number 5, I think. It's just crazy, huge numbers. It also has one of the biggest numbers of fans, and we're up to 43 million fans. It's just bonkers. 80,000 new fans a day. And our friend Afmar is just like stoked. He's thinking, this is great. I'm going to go and absolutely kill it on poker. I'm going to do a Facebook app doing poker. I'm going to take on Zynga. It's going to be great. And our friend Otmar feels the same. He's thinking, great, I'm an operator. I got budget. I can do these things. I'm in as well. So it's all happy money times for the boys. So Otmar says to Afmar that he's going to go off and do some research and just get some more data and just dig around a bit and talk to legal, see what they have to say. And Afmar is going to go and talk to his affiliate buddies and see what they say about it all. So a couple of days later, Otmar had some feedback from legal, and it wasn't really looking that good. So anyway, he decided to call his friend Afmar and share the news. The first problem we have is that we can't advertise cheaply. So in order to get one advert on, that's $30,000 a month for the single advert to start. So you can't just try it and see how it goes like you can with AdWords. You're either in or you're out. So he's happy enough, really. Otmar thinks, well, he's got the budget and he can run it, but he knows that conversion rates aren't particularly good. You know, with Facebook advertising, it's not like most other types of advertising, because the way the little icon works, you've got the little picture and then you've got the text, and the picture has to be very catchy. And it takes quite a lot of fiddling around to get that right. And also the optimization tools aren't as good as AdWords. So in other words, you're going to burn more money than you would on AdWords just trying to work it all out for yourself. But poor old Afmar, he can't really get involved because 30 grand to him is actually quite a lot of money. So Otmar has also been thinking about doing some branding as well, some brand advertising, because, you know, again, he's got a budget and it's quite good. And big brands quite like Facebook. They got 750 million users in a giant walled garden. They can run their adverts across this massive network and just absolutely chop out the CPMs and build in big brand awareness. But the catch is with our friend Otmar is that he's on the acquisition side, so he has to make money. He can't just spin a brand campaign out and just hope that it does some good somewhere else along the line. Like his buddy in the other department who runs TV, he has to get results out of it. So he's not really that keen. And the PPC, well, yeah, it's all right. But in the end, when you slice it and dice it right down, the volume isn't particularly good. So therefore, it's just a challenge, really. So what about stuff like fan pages and apps? Well, unfortunately, Otmar isn't very happy either. You see, the problem is it's only for fun, so you can't directly link to your transactional site. Now, I'm going to talk about something that's happened the other day in a minute with loosening up Facebook regulations, but basically, it's all a bit difficult. So you run your app, you pay your money, you run your app, you hope it gets picked up, you hope you get some traffic through. Now, recently, Facebook have loosened up the restrictions. So what can happen now is that you can go from your app to your soft site, inverted commas, and from there you can then persuade people to go to your real site, and then from there, hopefully, they'll convert. So, for instance, if we do a random figure like 300,000 users, so let's say 10% go through to the real site because they like the game, and why should they go to the real site? But if you're good, you know, it could be a much bigger figure. So that's fine. 30,000 people have gone to the soft site, and then from there, you've got another, say, 3,000, 10% of, that go to the real site. And from that, you get, say, a 1% conversion, for instance. Now, I'm just doing really random approximations here. The conversion figures could be very different. But the bottom line is, it's a very, very long-winded path. So there's another issue. And that's these boys, Zynga. So with 36 million users on their poker app, and being the biggest developer on Facebook, they kind of own the situation. So if Zynga decide to go and start to really push iGaming apps, and let's say that Facebook do a deal with them and do a deal with gaming in general and say, yeah, okay, you can do proper transactions on Facebook. Well, I'm sorry to tell you, but generally, in the law of the jungle, the biggest lion wins, and this is the biggest by a long way. So it's not great. But anyway, hey, what about fan pages? Did you know that Duct Tape, for example, has 4.4 million fans? That's cool. So a random page about tape has that many fans. I think this is great. So Afmar is really amped again because he's a really buzzed up, positive guy. Well, yeah, it's not really that good, unfortunately. So this is just a random selection of Facebook likes and whatever, or number of Facebook likes for pages. And Betfair have been doing a big push in it, and that's great. They got 25,000. But that's not really like 4.4 million, is it really? So it's not really very good. And I'm sorry to put a downer on you all, because this isn't particularly positive. But there is a slight upside, that there is an argument that every fan on every person who likes a page is worth a whole lot of extra money. Of course, the debate there is, were they already worth the money and they became a fan, or did becoming a fan stimulate them to buy more stuff and therefore be worth more money? I would argue it's like they liked and then they liked, as opposed to they liked and then they liked. So there's another interesting factoid here. This came out fairly recently about external traffic. So Google, as you'd expect, puts out more traffic from its site to other sites than any other site. That makes sense. But look at this. I don't know if any of you follow Reddit. It's a bit of a niche left web geeky hangout. But it drives more traffic to external sites than Facebook. Now Reddit's a 10 million unique visitor a day site, I think. And of course we've got Facebook, which is a Goliath. And look at how much traffic's going out of there. It's not actually that much, relatively speaking. So in other words, Facebook's a walled garden. You go into Facebook, you stay in Facebook. So they can't really... So ultimately, because of the click-through thing and all the restrictions, ultimately, it's brand. And that's fine, because we need to be there, says Otmar, you know, it's brand, got to be there, do your thing. But Afmar isn't so happy because he has to make money now, and this isn't going to be it for him. So honestly, it's not looking that nice, I'm afraid. And really, for these guys, social media has been a waste of time. They spend a long time just messing around, and it just hasn't really worked. So what are we going to do? Well, there was PPC, and that's always tough, and it's getting tougher. SEO is a bit of a mission these days. Campaign is pretty difficult to convert with, unless you go to the very edges of morality for the sake of argument, like there's diet ads and Google work from home things, stuff like that. So really, it's a bit of a challenge. It really is a bit of a challenge. But something has arrived. And this is something I'm personally really excited about. And I say that because I actually mean it, rather than just saying, oh, I'm excited. It's something called Zero Moment of Truth. Now, as you may know, there's been a big battle between Google and Facebook over the last 3 years, but it's really intensified over the last year. And Google have been in a big PR war, and they've started to fund quite a lot of market research and so on, so that they could build up arguments against Facebook in a very subtle kind of way. So this is what they've put together. The idea is that, there we go. The idea is that in the purchasing cycle, there are 4 steps now. There used to be 3. So in the old days, I would read stuff in newspapers, watch stuff on telly, and I'd be stimulated by brand. Then what would happen is I'd then go to the shop and make a choice, and then I'd buy something, and then finally I would go home and evaluate it. And if I was happy, that would be great. I might tell my friend. But today, something very different is happening. So you get stimulated by brand, so telly and radio and newspapers and broadcast media, etc. That doesn't go away. But there's a new component in this, and I would call that Facebook and social media. It's the stuff that you are exposed to that you're not really in a buying mood with, but it's just part of your landscape. It stimulates you. So the next bit is you're stimulated. So let's say you want to buy something. So that's cool. Now I've got my list of things I'm interested in or brands I'm interested in. So the next stage is to then do some research on the internet. So you look for some reviews and some feedback and stuff like that. And you just see what other people have to say about it. And off the back of that, you then narrow down your list. And then you get into the final, or the second from last moment, which is the cart. That's all good. And then finally, you buy your stuff. And then guess what? Because it's really easy to feed back, you feed back. And you tell people what you think. So those people who come through from there see this stuff and they go, oh, okay. And that helps them make a better decision. And on the cycle goes. So Google used data from 5,000 respondents for this thing. And they used this company called Shopper Sciences. And I think 5,000 respondents is a decent sample size to work with. So these are the kind of things that stimulated people. So I won't go into it in too much detail, but suffice to say, we've got stuff like seeing ads, stimulus, brand stimulus. We all know what it looks like. So that's it. But this is more interesting for all of us. So they search online. They find stuff. Now, there are lots of bits of this which aren't so relevant to us, like comparison. Well, comparison shopping is relevant to us, actually. This is quite relevant. This is kind of, actually, when you read through it, most of it is relevant, believe it or not. So this is what this bit looks like. And this is really important to think about, because this is where there is a real opportunity for everyone. Because people just don't, brands and affiliates and so on, don't pay enough attention to this stuff. We'll talk about what affiliates do later. But anyway, so we've gone from the stimulus to the ZMOT stuff, and now we're talking about the first moment of truth. Now, a lot of this is based around offline, but essentially, for us, it's where you go to the site and you buy stuff. So this is really cool. So if I like something, when I'm rating, I'll go and share and review, as I've said. It's really easy. We've all done it, and it works. And we feel better for it, so we do lots of it. So when it's that easy to feed back, you just get more and more of it. And the more of it you get, the more other people believe in it. And the more they believe in it, the more they do it. And on it goes. So this is a really disruptive pattern that's happening because of the internet. So Ottmar also talks about social proof. So ZMOT is a bit of an esoteric word for something which I call social proof. So essentially, if you believe that it's a tendency for us to believe what other people think, then if you go to Amazon and see 25 reviews for something, then it's kind of like there is proof, and it's social proof. So it's stuff like reviews on review sites and comments and ratings and stuff. It's all of that stuff we know. And as you affiliates know, you will do review sites because that's what you do a lot of. And it's all that kind of stuff. So there is a subtext here, which is to do with users getting more savvy and seeing through all this kind of stuff. Are we able to open the door back there? It's really hot in here. Can we get some air in here? Cool. Good. All right. I think it's just getting very hot in here for everyone. Anyway, so this ZMOT thing is really huge, and it is part of what users do. Marketeers don't talk about it very much because there isn't really, it's not that trackable, it's not that easy to work with, so therefore they can't get a budget for it, therefore they're not going to be working this side of things. But users do research, and according to this stuff, about 10.4 information sources are used every time a user does a search for stuff. So if you buy a phone, or maybe if you want to join a gambling company, you might do some search around different sites. I think it's very close to being like a credit card, in that when you have a card that works, it's fine. When you don't have a card that works, you're screaming. And this is a very, so I've used this analogy because it turns out with credit cards, if you look on this, if you look on this, and this is kind of interesting, this red stuff is the most intense. So this is where it is most influential. So you can see here, a week before someone decides to get a credit card, they're online and it really matters to them. But a month before, they're doing ambient research. Now, I would argue, as I said, that an account with a bookie or an operator is a bit like that. It is about the same degree of importance as a credit card. So I expect, although I don't have proof because I haven't spent £1 million on market research, but I guess that this is what's going on here, and it applies to us in iGaming. Here's another interesting one. So this is where, these are the different purchase cycles as you see, and this is influence or degree of activity. So you can see that for stuff like groceries, like low-level items, it's all happening just before they buy. And with automotive, the great deal of research happens like a long way out, and then eventually they come in and finally zero into their purchasing decision. So you can see with this, it's probably halfway between automotive and grocery, for instance. So the point is that search engines are really important for this stuff. And if they're really important, then we can do stuff, because most affiliates and most operators know their way around SEO. And SEO means manipulating Google. But we're going to talk about that a little bit more in a minute. So there's a really odd thing in the affiliate iGaming scene, and that is that because iGaming affiliates are so profitable, what they do is, or what you do, is you kind of push the line a lot, actually. You don't have to deal with license restrictions or whatever. So you can do things like compare with each other, compare operators and say things like you're really good or whatever, or you know, an operator is really good, and not necessarily mean it. So these sites, they're everywhere. And one of the things that Ofmar finds rather funny is that whenever somebody starts paying up more cash, then they start to climb up the ranking of the popularity ranking for the affiliates. So in other words, if William Hill, who seems to do a lot of these big promotions on a regular basis, if they're big, then they go up the ladder. But it's not really to do with who is the best, it's just to do with who pays the most. So, so this is all about being ruthless on conversion and just getting the sale, essentially. So anyway, the big thing that these guys have to do is make money out of it. And Opmar knows that our Afmar friend is just basically a commission-only salesman, and he thinks that he can play the ZMOT game to win over the affiliates who are basically telling lots of porky pies about who is good and who isn't. So there's a big kind of so what question about all of this. But ultimately the so what is you're going to make money if you do this right. So let's go through a few ideas. So Opmar decides this is how he's going to do it. Now, I will preface this by saying I'm doing another session tomorrow afternoon with Paul Riley, and we're going to be talking about brand protection and so on. And I go into a lot more of the tactics and the detail then. So if you want to come back for more, there's a load of that stuff then. But anyway, here's a little bit of it. So he has to set up his tracking and get some evidence. Otherwise, he's not going to have a business case. He's got to make sure that the CRM relationships are in place. Because if he wants reviews, positive social proof, in other words, he's going to have to work with those guys to talk to the existing customers, to get them to say nice stuff. And if he can do that, then that's just great, because the affiliate sites aren't telling the truth, and he can tell the truth, and he can do it in massive volumes. So the SEO stuff is really important in this, and the good thing is that most of the results are fairly uncompetitive, because this has been largely overlooked, because people are all chasing the final click and not necessarily the stuff that happens just before the final click. If you can roll the two pieces together on one site, then I think you're on a winner. So he's going to set up a load of listening stations and start to get a feel for what people are saying. And then from those, he's going to start ranking those conversations that are saying good stuff about him, that happen all over the place. And it's easy because he can just point links at it. They don't even have to know it's happening. Their stuff just goes up and they're happy and everyone's happy and it's a win. So a very good example of getting your reputation management sorted out, and this is on the negative side of things, because people will look at negative stuff, is stuff like Nike sweatshops. It's a really interesting one. When you go to it, you've got a massive brand like Nike, and guess what? There's only one article at the very bottom of the page which says anything positive about Nike and their efforts to deal with sweatshops. The rest is absolutely damning. So it's probably true that Nike do sweatshops and have child labor according to this stuff. Now, this happens to bookies as well. If you go brand stole my cash, see what comes up. It's pretty nasty stuff, and most brands don't take care of that kind of thing, which means that users get unhappy. So the good thing is that blended search doesn't get in the way, and that's very important because then you don't have to compete with YouTube and Google News search. And so the main thing here is to rank for positive reviews. Get those reviews in, get them up, and get them out there. And Mr. Affiliate Man, Afmar, this is how he's going to do it. So he's already got a database of emails. He's going to do a survey. He's going to just go and get those reviews. He's going to be relentless about it. And because he doesn't really have to tell the truth either, he can start editing the truth all over the place. So he's going to build a very compelling argument for one bookie over another. And guess who's going to be the best? It'll be the one that pays the most. So the other thing Afmar knows is that operators are very slow to get this stuff moving. So by the time the operators get swinging into action, he'll be months and months and months down the road because he can just do it tomorrow if he wants to. So he's going to be relentless with this because he knows that his ass is on the line, that SEO on the conversion stuff is getting tougher, and that he has to find another way to make money. So the guys kind of wrap it up there, and Mr. Otmar knows that Afmar is going to probably outrun him for a long time, and Otmar knows that he's going to be paying his friend Atmar an awful lot of commission. But anyway, they went on, and they did make a lot of money out of this, and it made them happy. The end. So thank you very much.
It's nice when it all works out for Atmar and Afmar and all our favorite characters from your comic book saga. But we went a long way from Zynga and from Facebook to Zero Moment of Truth. I guess a great example of what you're talking about is Amazon reviews. I mean, that's probably one of the most powerful Zero Moment of Truth sort of weapons in the arsenal. Mm-hmm. What do you think?
Reviews.
Amazon reviews, particularly. Yeah. So you're looking at a product on that product or experiences that other people have had with that product.
Yeah. So the thing is, there are a couple of... In fact, in the presentation they do tomorrow, there's one guy called Charles Gillespie who owns a site called WSN. And he has been playing around with metadata, and he's able to get those little star ratings. You know, the ones that are everything in Amazon? Because what you look at in an Amazon review is the number of stars, and you kind of go from there. So he's managed to get those star ratings onto the Google SERPs. So there's lots of little tricks you can do to start to take the best bits of Amazon and just put them onto Google. And Google wants you to do that, because Google wants you to make the internet a richer place for its users, because it knows that users like this kind of stuff. So if you can start to excavate this stuff and put it out there and start to pay attention to things like RDF, readable data format. There's a site called schema.org which goes into all this. You can do amazing things with SERPs. And if you start structuring your review site the way Google like it, then you'll just produce a massive mine of really good content for users. And if you rank it, then you're there. And that's exactly what operators should be up to, because it works.
You mentioned Facebook not really being a buying marketplace or selling marketplace. But if you remember, when Zynga first started, they had a very clever, very affiliate style, well, an entirely affiliate style model for revenue, whereby if you wanted to get a tractor, for instance, for your Farmville, then you would go and sign up either at Blockbuster and get yourself a Blockbuster card, or download and get a credit card application. And for doing those things, for those affiliate actions, they would actually give you virtual goods, like a tractor or extra chips in your Zynga account. But Facebook's really cracked down on that because they had a lot of complaints that people were being forced into buy things that they didn't want.
That's right.
Do you think Facebook has a desire to be a commercial platform? Do you think Mr. Zuckerberg just wants to make it a big free nerd thing?
What's the last 3 words?
A big free just place, nerd kind of utopia where everything is free and you just hang out on Facebook? Or do you think he actually has a desire to sell things?
Well, I'm not that good on Facebook, relatively speaking, but I do know that he looks at Facebook or sees Facebook as a platform from which people do stuff. So he sees himself as God in the ecosystem, and he can calibrate the way the ecosystem goes by the levers he has. So all the transactional stuff, when it went really bad a few years ago, when they had to start reining it back, it's because the ecosystem got out of control. Does he want it to be hippie paradise? No, of course not. What he wants is to make shed loads of money, but the thing is that he's got a problem, and that is that people don't go to Facebook to buy shit. They go to Facebook to go and see their friends or play a game or whatever. Now, when they're in the game, which is its own ecosystem, so it's ecosystem within ecosystem, then they buy stuff, virtual goods, but we're in iGaming, we can't do that yet. But when we can, Zynga will own it anyway, so you're going to have a hard one getting in there in any event.
Do we have any audience questions? Probably got time for a couple. I can't see any hands because of the light, actually, on this side of the room.
It's a very bright light here.
Did we have some hands on this side of the room? No?
Oh, you're all so quiet and
Everyone's
shy.
very shy, Nick. They're very shy. They want to go on Facebook and hang around. Let's
Maybe
see.
they're all shell-shocked. I don't know.
I've got, I've got one more, I guess, point. I know we're talking about Facebook, and you're talking about it not being a great motivating place to buy things. But that's not always your objective. We just put on something called Poker in the Park last week in London. It's the world's biggest poker fair. And we relied very heavily on social media to motivate people to go down to the fair. So you could actually get action. We didn't sell them anything until they got to the fair. But you could get action and you could get motivation out of Facebook. So maybe we're just approaching it from the wrong angle.
Yeah, you can get action and motivation, but generally it's not commercial action and commercial motivation. That's why when I talk about where Facebook lives, it kind of lives in the brand stimulus bit, because if Facebook, my logic is, Facebook is a place to hang out with friends. If you like a page or if you like an app, it's like you like a friend. It's just an extension of your friend network. And therefore, like brand stimulus done well, it's just like another part of the happy things in your life that you kind of think about generally. And when you reach the point where you have a need, so generally, as you know, in the buying cycle, people emerge with a need because I want to do something, whatever the trigger is, and usually it's a very deep subliminal thing. And then they go, oh yeah, that was in the landscape of happy friends that I kind of like. And that's when it starts to pay for itself. But the catch is that this stuff here doesn't happen online. Therefore, I can't put Google Analytics in my head and get an attribution for it. So therefore, if I'm in marketing, I can't put a budget against that stuff because I can't get a direct conversion. I can only get a very indirect one. So therefore, people who say to me, I want a business case, I want the numbers, are going to go, where are your numbers, Nick? And I go, sorry, it's brand.
Yeah, they don't exist. It's the internet. It's a new age. Any final question for Nick? Thank you very much, Nick.
All right, thank you all.